The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast, the ServiceNow series. Our guest today is Greg Wheeler. Greg is the public sector vertical lead for CDW ServiceNow Solutions. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you.
So Greg, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a little bit of an overview of your background in technology, from where you got started, maybe a couple of the roles you've held along the way, and take us up to where you are today as the public sector vertical lead for CDW ServiceNow Solutions?
My career started a long time ago. In 1984, I started with the state of New York. I ran an audit unit for an organization that funded alcohol and drug rehab programs. In doing that, I wanted to bring some technology into my audit group. And so I went back out, got my master's in a program that was half MBA, half IT, and realized I liked that much better than doing auditing and accounting. And so I moved to the state's central IT shop. In doing that, I started to get into internal controls, which led to process stuff that led to IT governance. After a couple of different failed starts with different product sets, in 2009, we went on to ServiceNow as our platform. From 2009 to 2015, when I retired, built out IT governance, IT service management in ServiceNow, watched how that grew and changed. When I retired, the natural step was to move into consulting. And so that's how I came to become part of CDW.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. For those listening who are maybe not as familiar with CDW, can you tell us a little bit about the business, its overall mission, and then we'll jump into your role leading the public sector division?
So CDW is a very large organization. Started out life as CDW stands for Computer Discount Warehouse. Started out as a hardware type organization, but over the years has expanded and grown into a services organization as well. We address everything from, again, hardware to data center solutions, to security solutions, to business solutions. The ServiceNow Solutions group, which is a self-contained piece within CDW, supports all aspects of ServiceNow, all of the disciplines that are within the platform, and also the business and the process and the consulting side of that, as well as a managed service group. If you don't want to manage your own instances and such, we can do that for you.
Thank you for that, Greg. So I want to jump straight into your role and your division, because it's quite interesting in some of the work that you're doing. So can you set the stage for the primary responsibilities of the public sector group? Maybe give us some examples of the conversations you're having with the types of customers, and then walk us through how they're interacting with the ServiceNow practice.
What we're seeing in the public sector vertical is that a lot of what government is experiencing, what public sector is experiencing, is the same thing that private sector experiences, but it has a little bit different flavor to it, right? So citizens that and constituents of the government sector are looking for the same type of experience when they're interacting with the government as they would if they're interacting with Amazon, right? So they're looking for something that's intuitive and easy to deal with. They're looking for it from different perspectives, though. Some citizens are looking for, I want to log into a portal, or I want to work in a digital way. But also we have constituents and citizens who are still calling on the phone or want to go to a desk. Government's also starting to come out with some bigger societal issues and problems that they're dealing with, and they're trying to address this through data and through structures with data and understanding the environment. Lastly, one of the things that's a little bit different, though, when we talk about government versus maybe private sector, is that government can't go out of business. They can't declare bankruptcy. So they're a little bit more resistant to change. You're going to see a little bit slower change because they're very risk adverse.
I think a lot of what you're saying will resonate. Public sector departments want to function like and have the same benefits of the private sector, but there are certain considerations that have to be taken into account, which may impact choice of strategic decisions. I think that segues nicely into the various services that CDW is providing within the public sector. And I know you've got it broken down quite well into three distinct categories. So can you just walk us through what you've historically been doing and how you're helping these public sector departments evolve with modern technology and ultimately bringing them into 2024 and beyond?
So as people who are familiar with ServiceNow are aware, when Fred Luddy started ServiceNow, he wanted to build a platform that you could build platforms on. But the venture capitalists that he was going for said you need to narrow your scope. So coming out of Peregrine Solutions, he did IT service management, ITX type of stuff. So a lot of our customers are coming to us with that need for ITX, right? They're looking for ITSM services, and can we help them not only with the platform aspect of that, but can we help them bring best practices into ITSM? Also looking at IT operations management, IT asset management, right? All the ITX stuff. And we're very good at doing that. And we're seeing that as a very common conversation. But what we're seeing is as the platform evolves, we're starting to push the conversation boundaries a little bit. We're starting to have more conversations with our customers about, you can do governance, you can do strategic planning, you can do financial management within the platform, and we can bring some of those best practices to you. And then that can influence your strategic plan for your organization, then has your IT strategic plan or your transformational strategic plan underneath that. And we can start to do that alignment so that you can optimize your IT staff, you can optimize your IT investment, you can optimize what you're doing and bring a better experience to your constituents and to your citizens. But then lastly, there's a newer set of functionality that's come onto the platform called Public Sector Digital Services. And this is the thing that I'm really excited about. So now we're walking beyond IT and we're walking into the things that public sector organizations, governments do with their citizens, right? So this can run the gamut of getting licenses and permits for businesses to managing grants, to funding not-for-profits, to running programs and educational programs or health and public health programs, and bringing that all together. And we can start to do that right within this same platform. The beauty of that is that, at least my experience when I was in New York, was that we would have multiple point solutions to do these different things. So if I updated my address on my driver's license, that did not update my address for tax and finance, or it did not update my address for even my boat trailer, right? So by bringing this stuff into a central place, we can start to, one, get a better view of who people are and help them better, but we can also give them a more consistent experience. The constituents have a better way of interacting with their government. I know New York has just implemented or hired a digital experience officer. So they're really starting to look at what is the experience that the citizens are having when they're trying to interact with their government, and how can we make that better and more consistent.
Given your position within CDW, you're obviously overseeing a lot of the public sector initiatives, which gives you some insight into where you see this direction going, particularly in the near term. Talking about the digital service aspect of it, when you look at the work you're doing for your customers now, what are some of the projects that you're excited to see come to fruition? I know you can't disclose too much just due to confidentiality, right, but when you look at the impact CDW ServiceNow is having within the public sector, what stands out to you being particularly exciting, and where can we expect to see continued growth and success for this business unit?
There's some interesting ones that we've been working with. So Within the public sector domain, we are also talking about school districts. And so we're working with a couple of very large school districts right now. And so when COVID came out, by using these types of services, we were able to, it's a little bit technology oriented, but to start to understand what students had what laptops and what they were assigned and how to interact with them. And we're also able to understand some of the constituent or the parents' needs and that type of thing. So we were able to start bringing some of those pieces together. We're also able to now say, since how we have this environment in which we know where all your schools are and where all the buildings are and stuff, we can start to do enterprise asset management. And so within enterprise asset management, not only do we understand what the boilers are, what assets are within the school, but we could also maybe even understand you've loaned this musical instrument to this student for this school year, or even expensive books or things like that. So it's really starting to do that stretch where we can start to walk off of IT specific things and to start to serve the public larger.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Whenever we get somebody at your level onto the podcast who is working within the ServiceNow community, but providing services within the public sector, whether it be defense, government, health, we always want to get your perspective on the opportunity that sits within this vertical, because obviously ServiceNow as a platform is growing year over year tremendously well, and there's a lot of companies in the private sector who are looking to utilize the technology, but there's a tremendous opportunity for people within the ServiceNow community to hone and develop their skills within the public sector. As somebody who's worked on both sides of that and now very much focused on public sector, what can you tell us about CDW's commitment to this particular vertical, and what opportunities do you see for people within the ServiceNow community who are maybe currently in private sector, never considered public sector work? Talk to us a little bit about CDW's continued investment in this space.
So what we're looking at is building a center of excellence. So people might be in the ServiceNow community starting to understand the platform and what the platform can do. But what we're also looking at is we're looking at the practitioner side of this. So if we were looking to bring a team on site, let's say is working with an organization that funds not-for-profits, one of the use cases that I talked to you about, not only are we bringing ServiceNow people with us that understand the platform and how that works, but we're also trying to bring a practitioner, somebody who's actually worked on the government side, funding not-for-profits, right? So that they can talk in the language of our customers and they can understand what the customers are saying and maybe bring some best practice to them. I think the reason why I'm saying it like this is if you're in the private sector or you're looking to move into this type of space, especially within CDW, you may say, well, I don't understand ServiceNow, so that's not the direction that I want to go. I'm suggesting to you that don't limit yourself. The tool is something that can be learned. The platform is something that can be learned, and how that supports your mission. If you understand the processes and such, that brings us back, that provides its value into itself.
One of the things you and I were talking about previously, and I think we might have a few minutes to cover it here, is
Sure.
the various approaches that you've seen successful when working with some of the federal and government agencies, whether it be the hybrid waterfall scrum method. Can you talk to us about how you've navigated that field, need for controls, the agility side of things, getting the right balance, and what you've learned just given your role? You're working with so many different divisions, each of them with their unique set of challenges. They can't exactly operate to the same rule set as the private sector. So how do you approach that?
Remember, we talked about a little bit earlier that governments resist change and they're less risk adverse. So a pure agile environment, a pure let's try things and move forward, isn't as accepted as well in government as it may be in a private organization. So what we're seeing is that mix of strategic planning in that bigger picture and then agile implementation methodologies underneath that. So a water scrum fall, or as you said, a hybrid type of approach where if we're within a project, our planning, if we take and align our project lifecycle to our system development lifecycle. So if we'd say planning is requirements and design, and then execution is configuration, and then we go to transition and support, then planning in the requirements and design at a high level is a waterfall type of solution because we have a little bit more control over it and we're ready to get sign off and move through that. Then when we move into development, now we can start to take more advantage of the agile. We can do the fail fast, so we can start to build pieces against that design, against that understanding, and see how they work and react and change course along that, and then come back into a bigger bang transition at the end of that because we need to go through testing and such at that. So by mixing the more strategic, the more stoic waterfall approach with that agile approach, we can get the best of both worlds of being able to move quickly, but within the guardrails and within the confines of the design.
Thank you for sharing that. It's such an important one that we often try to cover whenever we have somebody working in your space, because we know the circumstances can be different, but ultimately there's a path to being successful, and whatever is working is what we want to showcase.
In my experience, one of the things that I've run into is people going, well, that takes more time and it slows us down. I heard an analogy a long time ago where somebody was comparing this to putting brakes on your car, right? If you don't have brakes on your car, you cannot go very quickly because you're afraid of running into something all the time. But if you put those controls on, that's like putting brakes on your car. Now I can actually run faster because I know I can stay in control at greater speeds.
It's a great analogy, really useful. Greg, I want to finish on getting your take on what it's like to work at CDW. I know you've been there for quite some time now, and your role has evolved, which always shows that there's opportunity to improve and adapt. Now, as a leader within the business, focusing on a particular business vertical, you've got a high-level overview of the business, but also you've been in different positions. Speaking to an audience of ServiceNow practitioners, many of whom are always on the lookout for the next place to hone and advance their skill set, what can you tell us about CDW ServiceNow Solutions as a group, why it's a great place to work, and what you would tell prospective candidates who are maybe in process?
I think that CDW has, similar to when we were talking about hybrid project approach, right? CDW is like a hybrid type of organization. It's a very large organization that has a lot of security by its size. It has a lot of capability by its size, and it covers a lot of different disciplines. But also at the same time, it's agile. We move forward, we take some risks, we move forward with new types of things. We're able to experiment and try new things. We're able to learn new pieces and bring it forward. So it's got that great mix of both sides. It has the things that you want out of a big organization, especially in uncertain times when if you were a smaller organization, you might feel at risk. But at the same time, it's got a small town feel, especially within some of these teams, where you are able to do things like you would in a smaller organization that tends to have that agility advantage. So it's kind of got the best of both of those worlds. I would definitely recommend to anybody to come work with us because we're really striving to break new ground and to move things forward. Even this focus on public sector digital services, it's a fairly new area within the ServiceNow environment. A lot of customers aren't even thinking of using ServiceNow from that, but we're going to make an investment. We're going to make this work.
Greg, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I really appreciate you sharing your own background, but most importantly, the insight into the work you and your team are doing with CDW within ServiceNow, and the focus on the public sector. As you had said to me previously, it's an area that CDW is committed to, and we expect to see a lot more growth. So we're excited to see what you guys can accomplish. We wish you, the team, and everyone at CDW the best of luck in the months and years to come, and look forward to having you back on the show in the near future.
I'll come back anytime because this is something, whether you've heard it in my voice, I have a passion about, and I love talking about this, and I love learning from other people. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.